Yes, yes, I know it's the highest inflation since the 70s and the biggest drop in disposable income since the 1950s and the most onerous tax burden on the British people since the Second World War. But that's no reason for our depraved political class not to party on and crack open another magnum of bubbly. So they were all last night at the Rosewood Hotel for the Spectator's Parliamentarian of the Year award. Yeah, there they are, all lined up. There's Keir and Jeremy in the middle, and there's Rishi and Theresa over on the left. If you're wondering what the Rosewood Hotel is, well, it's the last hotel in the United Kingdom not full of Albanian, quote, asylum seekers. So unlike that wedding you booked at the Grade 2 listed Stoke Rochford Hall in Lincolnshire, look at that place. It's the Albanian version of Downton Abbey right there. So unlike if you had the misfortune to book your wedding at that Grade 2 listed building and then got booted out, the Spectator's Parliamentarian of the Year knees up didn't get booted out of the hotel to make way for the Albanian Sex Trafficker of the Year awards. That's actually much more competitive than Parliamentarian of the Year. So here's Jeremy Hunt getting an award for Best Facial Expression by a coup leader. And here's Theresa and Rishi sharing a joke. Looks like a bit of elaborate choreography on Rishi's part there. He's going to park his nose in her cleavage if he's not careful. And here's Sir Keir and the Spectator editor arguing over who ordered the second bottle of the Chateau Petrus at 6,000 quid, because neither wants it on his debit card. And here's Emily Mateless schmoozing some sister of Boris Johnson, because sure, the Johnsons are totally mateless right now, but they're cunning buggers, so you have to keep one or two of them around, because after a year or two of giving $1 million speeches to lay about Saudi princes and sleazy Kazakh oligarchs, one or other of them is bound to be back. Oh, and here's an 87-year-old Cornwall man lying on the ground in the rain under a makeshift shelter, waiting 15 hours for an ambulance. Oh, and here's a lady from Kidderminster who died of a seizure while waiting 3 hours on the telephone to speak to her GP. Oh, and here's the Border Force bringing in more strapping young Albanian lads, because let's face it, you can never have enough strapping young Albanian lads. The good news from the Office for National Statistics is that net migration, that's the number of people entering the UK minus the number of people who fled, net migration is at an all-time high, over 500,000. That's the population of Liverpool, or alternatively Edinburgh. Now that the Supreme Court has nixed Nicola Sturgeon's independence referendum, it might be easier just for her to apply to become the westernmost province of Albania. 500,000 is a new record for net migration. The previous record was 331,000 in 2015. But if you recall, the following year, 2016, we voted to take back control, and it's now over 50% higher than when we didn't have any control. We actually took in over 1 million people. That's the population of Birmingham. Nearly 3/4 of them non-EU. But fortunately, that was offset by all the people getting the hell out of here. Have you cleared out your current account, loaded up the Vauxhall Astra and scrammed for your life? No? Why ever not? If you're under 50 and haven't already made your dosh, haven't already got your foot on the property ladder for a modest bedsit somewhere, the Spectator Parliamentarians of the Year have pretty much assured you're never going to. Because of the policy decisions taken by Rishi Rich and his chums 2.5 years ago, the country's finances are destroyed. All the money's been blown on boondoggles like track and trace, and enriching well-connected chaps like Churchill's grandson, Rupert Soames, and his company Serco. So there's no good news on the horizon. The bare minimum we should ask for, however, is that these useless parliamentarians of the year stop making things worse. Do you like net zero? Everybody does. All the parties are hot for it. So I'd like to extend it to migration. Net zero emissions from the English Channel, net zero emissions from lorries loaded with Albanians. Net zero to improve the environment in your neighborhood, by which I mean net zero carbon footprint from country house hotels converted into 6-to-a-room migrant hostels, and from excitable young chappies hanging around the primary school playgrounds. Net zero. It's not just for the Maldives and Tuvalu, but for the British Isles as well. Net zero migration, and let's try and persuade that 500,000 Brits fleeing their native land, see if we can make it non-dysfunctional enough that they might consider staying.